What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Iced Gaming, and today we're going to be doing the counter guide to the assassin Nemesis. Now, before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep up with any future content, I'll be leaving my link to my Discord chat and my Twitch in the description below. Now, let me go ahead and say this, just like Tsukuyomi, Nemesis doesn't really have a lot of hard counters as far as items go, but she does have some character counters, and we're going to be going over that today. So first things first, let's go over her abilities so you understand how to deal with them. So quick overview for this character. Basically, for her passive, whenever she hits, she reduces your damage and increases her own. Her dash can dash twice, and it does have some damage, and she can basic attack between both. She can basic attack and throw abilities between her dashes. Her second ability is just a little cone attack that does double the damage if struck from the very center of the ability. And her shield reflects a set amount of damage and then heals, and then is, she also gets a little bit of the health back from the damage received. So, that's a lot. And then her ultimate reduces the HP and protections of the target while also increasing her movement speed. Right? So, there's a lot to take in with this character. First, you need to understand that this character, even though her abilities hit really hard, she is an auto-attack character, right? She'll throw abilities every once in a while, but her main thing is throwing her autos at you because she needs this. She needs this passive to really dish out her damage, right? And then her ultimate is for killing tanks. If you see a Nemesis use it on a squishy, most of the time it's just to make sure that she can either get away or that they're bad. Most of the time you're going to be seeing this character use her ult on a tank. So the biggest thing that you want to be worried about Nemesis is her shield. So how her shield works is that she'll take no damage while the shield is active. She'll reflect 50% of the damage received, heal for 100% of the damage received, and it lasts for 2.5 seconds. It's a very scary thing. So I know I don't have any items out, so I really can't showcase the power of this ability. But let me go ahead and show you. So if I attack her, I pop shield, you can see that she's actually taking damage from her own autos, right? And so the how to counter this, right, even though it says it in the description, is hard CC. Hard CC includes knockups, stuns, mezzes, fears, taunts, banishes. A banish something being like Kumba's ult or Heimdallr's ult, or or a madness. Madness being that special debuff that Circuit and Discordia have, where they make you fight each other. And then that also includes transforms, Hera's second ability, which will transform you into something else, or Carnuno's ult, right? So those are all the things that will counter this. So the main thing with dealing with Nemesis is that when she engages you, you have to be patient. You will take some damage. You know, you can try to kite around her, and you will take some damage. Save your hard CC for when this character pops her shield. Because the second she pops her shield, she's a sitting duck after you stun her, right? So that's the first way to counter. I had to do a quick costume change, but the second thing you could do to deal with this character is have somebody with a cripple. These dashes on a relatively low cooldown, with no cooldown, is at 13 seconds. And having a cripple on deck will make her mobility really very, very limited. And so you have to have the cripple to help to make sure she doesn't get away. So if she engaged with this, pop your cripple. Because what she's gonna do immediately afterwards is pop her shield so she doesn't die, and then all you have to do is hit her with a hard stun. Then at that point she's a sitting duck. She really can't do anything to you. So what we're gonna be talking about next with this character is items that can help you counter her. Unfortunately, since the card is going to be getting nerfed, it's going to be a little harder for people to build this item. But for now, until it gets nerfed, item in line is very, very good. This will keep her from getting all of the stacks on her Scales of Fate, so it actually reduces her damage. Plus, she'll block 2 of her autos, so this is very, very useful. Another thing you're going to want is Mantle of Discord. The stun will make it to where she gets immediately off you once your health drops below a certain threshold, even though it's not 100% reliable. But the CC immunity with the stun is very, very welcome. Up next, another good item if you're physical or if you're magical, get the equivalent of Runic Shield. I believe it's called Void Stone or something along those lines. But basically what it does is the same thing as Runic Shield. It will reduce the physical power of enemy gods near you by 40, which is very, very useful against somebody like Nemesis who can just keep stacking her power. So getting that card on is wholeheartedly recommended. If you're a tank or you're a support, get Sovereignty. You want to basically build as much physical protections against her as you possibly can to make sure she can't just instant kill your squishies. But overall, those are the 3 best items that or the 4 best items that you can use to counter her. Up next, we're going to be talking about the gods that can counter hit. So we're going to start with the assassin classes, and obviously this character had to be the number 1 that counters her, Tsukuyomi. Reason being is because he has almost the same kit. However, this stun with the disarm helps him a lot in the matchup. And if you save your disarm for when she pops her shield, you'll get the stun, you'll get the disarm, and she's a sitting duck. And if she tries to dash away from you, you have this little line move that can catch up to her with your ranged autos, and you have ultimate. So this character can deal with Nemesis really well. However, the matchup is about 5-5, maybe 6-4 in Tsukuyomi's favor, because if Nemesis can bait out his Tsukuyomi's second ability and she can get her shield going, Tsukuyomi will basically just kill himself. So that matchup is a little bit strange, but Tsukuyomi is the number 1 contender to deal with that character. Another character that I feel like can deal with Nemesis pretty well is Pele. Again, this just falls into a matchup kind of thing. If you know the matchup, you'll have to bait out Nemesis's shield, and then pop your second ability, which will knock her up and get rid of it almost immediately. Like, basically immediately. And then she can just do Pele things. On top of the fact that her passive gives her lifesteal and increased physical power. So this character can definitely deal with Nemesis pretty well, but then again, like I said, you had to know when to use your knockup. Up next, we have Ratatoskr. Again, this is a matchup thing. If you use your dash and then immediately use your second ability and then wait for her to use her shield, then if you have the skill shots, if you hit Nemesis with your third ability, this will stun her. So this is more of a skill shot kind of thing, so this matchup is kind of more in Nemesis' favor, but if you have the skill to hit Ratatoskr stun, Ratatoskr can definitely deal with Nemesis pretty well. Up next, we have Susanoo. This matchup I really feel is completely in Susanoo's favor, just because of how his kit works. Nemesis can't get away from him. He has both these damaging abilities, so he doesn't have to engage with his Wind Siphon, and once he engages with these 2 abilities, and she pops her shield, he has a pull, which is really, really good for him. And he can do an absolutely absurd amount of damage. Plus his ult has a knockup on it. So Susanoo has the complete kit to help deal with Nemesis. So if you're looking for... But at the same time, Susanoo isn't exactly the easiest person in the world to use. It may feel as though, but your positioning has to be on point with this character. So, like I said, this character can kind of pick Nemesis pretty hard, but you have to have the skill involved. But this character is definitely a go-to. The final person in the Assassin class that I feel like can deal with Nemesis pretty well is Thor. And that's just because he has this stun. Plus he gets extra damage for each person that's near it, for each enemy god that's near him, capping out at 3 stacks with 30 damage. So Thor can definitely deal with her. I wouldn't 100% recommend it, just because the stun does no damage. And how Nemesis works, it's going to be kind of hard for Thor to set up. But he does have this stun. He has his 2. He has a teleport, and he has this really hard-hitting 3. So Thor can definitely deal with Nemesis, but I don't think it's really in his favor. I honestly still think Nemesis kind of wins this matchup, but that's just personal preference. If you're looking for somebody a little bit more easier to use to deal with Nemesis, Thor could be a really good way to go. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Guardians, and you know Cabrakan has to be in here. Break your back, Cabrakan. He has 2 stuns and an ultimate that keeps it to where Nemesis can't run away from him, and this character does absolutely absurd amount of damage. The only thing that he struggles with is how fast Nemesis can actually move, considering the fact that he does not have a run move in this, or a movement move, but his 1 does increase his movement speed by a whopping 35%. So this character is absolutely ridiculous for Cabrakan, especially when you put him in the solo or for Nemesis, and especially if you put him in the solo lane where he can build more damaging items and not really have to worry about being a support. So Cabrakan is a definite go-to. Up next, we're going to be talking about Artio. Now, I think Artio hard counters Nemesis. There's really not a lot Nemesis can do about this character. She has a cripple in her druid form, and then when she's in her bear form, she has a stun. She has everything you need. She has both the tools you need to really counterpick Nemesis. So, if you see a Nemesis on the enemy team and you're playing ranked, grab Artio. Or if you just don't feel like dealing with Nemesis in casuals and you're the solo or the support, just grab Artio. Easy as that. Kumbhakarna obviously had to be on here. He has this Mez and a Banish. But he has to know when to use the Mez, because if she baits the Mez or he engages with the Mez, the Nemesis can just pop shield and get out scot-free. So be careful with that. Athena is also a really good pick as a support to help deal with Nemesis, because she does have this taunt, and so she can instantly get rid of that shield. However, using the how her character works using the combo is the most beneficial way to help the team. So it's a little bit wonky with how Athena works, so keep that in mind. But Athena can definitely get the job done. Up next, we're going to be talking about Geb. Geb is a really good pick to deal with Nemesis, stunning all a shield, and then this knockup. And then if you manage to hit the fully charged version of rollout, literally everything in this character's kit can deal with Nemesis, and he's a really defensive god. So this is a really good support if you see a Nemesis on the enemy team. So before I get to the next section of gods, I do want to talk about mages, about who can counterpick her. Basically none of these people. I'm gonna be 100% real. Basically none of these people. There's very few people. There's maybe Hera. There's maybe Nox. There's Hades. And that's basically it. There's not really a lot of people on here that can counter her. Mostly because of how mobile Nemesis is. She could dash and dodge a lot of these people's kits. But, you know, and Morgan, because, you know, Morgan can just turn into her and then and has this stun. So I guess Morgan can counter her, but that's basically it. Yeah. If there's a Nemesis and you're playing a mage, just be ready to die on cooldown. I'm sorry, there's really nothing you can do about that. But surprisingly, a lot of hunters can deal with Nemesis pretty well. Time Dollar, Banish, and Galahorn. You have Apollo with a Mez and a dash out. You have Medusa with her ult. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but hey, Reflection Bolt. Wooler with a stun. Let me see here. You also have Cupid that has a cripple and a stun on his ultimate and his first ability. And then Artemis. I wouldn't recommend really using Artemis too much just because of how immobile she is and how the meta is working right now. But Artemis hits so hard just by ulting somebody, and then she has this Vine Trap, so the second she ults, she can just make her stay still. So a lot of the hunters can actually deal pretty well with Artemis, a lot of which are still pretty good. So if you see a Nemesis, pick one of those hunters that I mentioned. And then finally, we're going to be talking about the warriors. Tyr, it's a great counter pick. He has a push and a knockup in just his first ability alone. And he has insane amounts of sustain in his third ability. Even if he gets ulted, he has insane amounts of sustain. Hercules has this driving strike, which can stun her, and he can do an absurd amount of damage. Plus, he has this healing ability, which is basically Nemesis 3. And then this ultimate, he does an absurd amount of damage. Plus, he gets physical power every single time he gets hit. So Hercules is a really great pick. Achilles is also a really great pick. He has really good mobility and he has a stun. And finally, the last person I do want to talk about that I feel can deal with her pretty well is, well, the final two people. Number 2 being Bellona. She has this disarm and then she has this shield bash, which keeps her from auto-attacking her. And then the last person that I want to say that can deal with her pretty well is... where? I would have to say Osiris. And for one reason, or for two reasons. His passive that gives him damage mitigations, and then his third ability that gives him damage mitigations, which also stuns. And then he can slow her down with this. He could slow down Nemesis with his first ability, and then speed himself up with his second ability. So those are the all the warriors that I feel I can deal with her pretty well. And that about covers this guide. Now, even though I did mention a lot of guys that can deal with her, those matchups only work if they save the CC or save their CC for when she pops shield. If they don't, Nemesis runs the game. There's a reason why I believe she's considered the second best assassin, right behind Tsukuyomi, just because of how good Tsukuyomi is right now. However, even though this character can be a little bit daunting to deal with, it's all about your patience and how well you can manage your patience to help deal with shield. If you like the video, if you have any questions, or you would like to challenge me on some of the things that I said, don't forget to comment, like the video, and without further ado, I'll catch y'all later.